The purpose of today's meeting is to have a kick on the engineering and architectural work study that are going to be done in 4 of the city facilities. And present from the Owen Collins team that won the bid are Stephen Cohen, okay, and
David Triplett.
Okay, and you represent kind of the combined
Yes.
team there.
CRSA,
CRSA.
Consulting, Bone Collins.
Okay. And you're going to be project lead, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we have an agenda in front of us, and I think you folks actually prepared the agenda.
Yeah, and you have items to put into it. This is just something, these are thoughts, and so don't let it govern your questions and things. This is what we thought was necessary.
Okay.
You may have things that you want to go beyond that, so.
Well, we mainly want to make sure that we've given you the correct scope of work that we're looking for, and that you're, when you come back to report, you're able to give that information back to us. And then we understand from the scope of work that was defined, you might have additional questions, or there may be limitations as to what you are not or were not able to perform. Like, we understand there was no drills to look into spaces that were completely boxed in, things like that.
And at this point, because of this being a broad, not a detailed study, I think that's going to be unnecessary. I was able to poke my head into enough places today to see what I needed. I think it's like for you, Dave. I think so too.
Okay,
Yeah, they've been here since 8:30 this morning looking at facilities.
right. Mike was out measuring when we were in here a few minutes ago, so that's good. Okay, just at a general level, the reason we put this out for bid is we've had lingering concerns over a multi-decade period that some of the city facilities are not in good condition or seismic, to withstand any kind of seismic event. And then perhaps also structurally, there may not be the kind of safety things that are required, or they're not up to code for what we would like to use them for. Now, we're not asking in this study for you to evaluate future types of uses that the buildings are not currently designed for. We're simply asking for what will it take, or what are the current conditions of the facilities, especially the seismic. Also, what would it take or cost, and how much time to each of those facilities up to being able to use them for their current needs. And so we'll go through each one of those individually just to make sure we're both on the same page. So probably one of the big concerns then is going to be this building behind us, which is the old recreation center. I don't know what it was used for back in the day when it was constructed.
It was the high school gym.
That was the high school gym. So
No,
effectively,
it was a dance hall.
a dance hall.
Yeah.
Was the gym floor added later?
The original floor was part of that dance hall.
So is that the original floor in there now?
It's underneath the overlay.
Okay. Because that floor now is some kind of bouncy floor.
It's a suspended floor underneath.
So, see, it pays to have people in the community
That are old enough.
What's that?
That are old enough to
Do
remember.
not say that. And we have seen crossbars put in with plates and big huge screws on the sides of it. We've seen marks in the face of the building, windows, door separations, etc. And there's just a concern as to whether or not this building is capable of being saved, what that might cost, or are we in a condition where we're beyond practical perspective of saving that. There are many in the community that would like to see that building remain, but we also have to be practical if you guys come back and tell us one way or the other. So,
Well, I think you'll find in the end, we're gonna give you some data that can help you make those decisions. The community value, the amount of money that you spend to retrofit it is a matter of what value that the community puts into it. So that's a judgment the community has to make.
Sure.
We won't. But we hopefully can give you enough data so that you can make some informed decisions.
all right.
In some old pictures, for the old building, there were two buildings on either side.
Can you speak up, please? I can't hear you back here.
In some old photos, there were two buildings on either side of the, old rec center. And those two buildings were removed.
Was there an interconnection between them?
I just remember seeing pictures of where there were buildings on both sides.
And the reason I'm asking that question, there's some funny toothing of masonry on the sides of the buildings. And if there was an old opening connecting it to an older building, that would maybe explain that funny toothing that we were seeing.
Have we identified the Pleasant Grove Historical Society yet?
Chief Dave, and by the way, we have a new fire chief, and his name is Dave Thomas.
Don't get that wrong again.
Okay. I grabbed it off the website for my defense.
Oh.
I thought.
We're updating.
Point well taken.
Okay,
So,
so
It was
also,
right there.
Yeah. Well,
Mark has in his office, 3 volumes.
Dave.
Dave.
I said Mark.
I said Mark. I won't make that mistake again. Chief Dave has in his office 3 volumes of the history of Pleasant Grove, and there are photos that go along with it, and I think that it's chronological. So that's a resource, and his office is right there.
we'd like to look at them.
And I just have one technical question.
Okay.
What is the difference between structurally sound and seismically sound? In one sentence.
A seismic event is a rare event, and so when you say structurally sound, it can stand in daily use.
Structurally sound is just
Structurally-
daily wear and tear.
Yep, daily wear and tear, but that doesn't tell you that in an extreme event it's going to perform well.
Okay.
And not to go beyond the one sentence, but there's a code, it's called the Dayton of Dangerous Building. And seismic isn't even listed in there as a parameter for abatement of dangerous buildings. Now, the roof getting ready to collapse from snow loads or something like that would be.
Okay.
All right.
So you'll provide us with where this particular structure fits.
Yeah, well, all of these, they're standing.
Have been for quite some time.
Yes. Codes have changed greatly over the years. And the other thing you find is that wood structures, the safety factor, the code has safety. When you put a design load on it, you don't want it to be near collapse when you're loaded at the max. You want a safety factor on top of that. Concrete has about 1 2/3 safety factor, still has about 1.5 safety factor. Wood can be anywhere from 1.5 to 8, depending on, because wood's variable. They worry about knots, you worry about the wood drying out over time, and so if you were to analyze any of these, well, not this building here, but if you analyze the roof structure of the old rec center, the old seminary building, and the Beck home, none of those would meet current code requirements for snow load. In fact, we tell you don't insulate those types of buildings because one of the things that saves them is that the heat escapes from the building and melts the snow on the roof. And so those are issues that we aren't addressing in this one, but we will comment on it. And I will throw in I'll make, well, not make that, but based on past experience, we'll put a multiplier, because I wasn't originally thinking of doing that, but after looking at these roofs, if you're gonna use them, because when you get done retrofitting them, you're gonna wanna say that they're good for 50 years, something like that. And it doesn't make sense to retrofit a building and then not up roof structures, for example. Now, the fact is, they've been here for 100 years, these buildings almost.
That one.
And so So when you look at some of that and me tell you that it's a bad structure, and you're saying, oh, you know, I'll have an old timer say, but it's been here 100 years. How can you say it's a bad building? But that's because there's large safety factors. And the fact is heat escapes and melts the snow on the roof, and there's steep pitched roofs, and there's things to help them out. But in their current state. Now this roof, you've got steel joist on this roof, and a fire station, you've got steel joist, and those are probably close to complying for the roof structures themselves. That's a side note. But
So, okay, so back to this building, the intended, no, it's fine. Current use, it's kind of sporadic, some basketball games, some junior jazz types of activities. We have Holy Fatigue, which seems to actually be used more for that kind of an event than else. Kind of a crafts fair thing. Any other uses you guys can think of?
Who uses or operates the weight training area?
That was a offshoot. Is it still?
Fire department, we still go over and use it.
so
There's stands, there's youth dances and things like that. Sometimes.
and Bill mentioned to me that you lease it out to a private school to use it as their gymnasium. Is that true?
Yeah, Dion would know that.
During the school year, they'll come in bad weather, inclement weather.
So
Is that John Hancock? Who is that?
They must have been, so I can't remember, it's not John.
Oh,
So that's kind of the uses that it's for now. Okay, next to that one is the small building that's on the west side of it. We've been told that the exterior looks pretty good, but I don't know that anybody's actually examined the whole building as a structure and looked at it to see if it couldn't be remodeled, cleaned up, and used for offices. So we're interested in the safety of that building as well.
unfortunately for today, because we just took the pictures today, we'll do a meeting when we've got our report all put together. We'll come back and present our findings. And in that one, we'll show you some pictures up in the roof structure, and you can see how they're framed. And it's, like I said, it's been there, it's lasted, but obviously if you're gonna use it for that, one of the things you wanna do is energy efficiency things. You wanna blow insulation up there, and because of that, and in fact, that one, I was surprised to find out that, you know how right now it's nice and symmetrical. It turns out that big classroom, that was an addition, was built at the same time that lean-to was in the back. When you get up there in the roof, you can see where they overbuilt the old roof to build that east
Yeah, we
roof.
didn't know.
Forensic architecture and forensic engineering is kind of fun.
That is fun.
So that's good for us to know, and then you'll translate it to what that means.
Yeah, it just means it had an addition, and
It was built in three pieces. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Rather than being built as a single whole, it was built in multiple pieces at different times.
So you're analyzing both the outside structure and inside of all these facilities.
yeah. Right now, what we're doing is maybe I got a short little presentation, won't take too long. Let me go through this because the technique that we're using for the seismic part of the study, which is one of the emphasis of the RFP, we picked a particular method, which is appropriate for this level of design. But I wanted to briefly go over and explain to you a couple things on that, so if that's okay.
Are you connected now?
Yes.
Okay.
And
He's got your laptop there.
yeah, so we'll have that. Okay. So, one of the things that we talk about always is you don't worry about earthquakes if you live in a part of the country where there's no earthquakes. And this is just a little representation. This is these stars that you see here is when there was a last. When they went through the Utah Geological Society went through and they did trenching along the different faults and they dated them, and they can tell when the earthquakes, when they had a movement last time they had movement. And so along the different segments, you can see when they were. So you can see they're very active. Now the average works out to be roughly about 1,300 years when you take the composite.
use that to point on the screen. So
So you've, and then Provo, the Provo segment was the most recent to move, so that's good news for you, so because supposedly, theoretically, you're the longest out, from the next time it moves. The problem is your neighbor to the north of you, Salt Lake, if you look at this spacing, you'll see that, we're there. Now, there's a plus or minus 500 years on it, so we're gonna have an earthquake any day in the next 500 years. But that gives you an idea there. Want to go to the next slide? And this is just some evidence along the Wasatch Fault. Here I am, structural engineer, so you have to humor me for a minute. This is, where 13th East is. This is along there. You can see that hill, that fault from the aerial photo. You can see where the fault is. This is up at the mouth of Big Cottonwood or Little Cottonwood. I can't remember which, but you can see the faults there. This is up, we like this one because Bowman Collins does a lot of water treatment, sewer treatment plants, and this is a water treatment plant right below the fault line that's there.
That was well planned. That was well planned.
Yeah.
Cheap land.
When I was in college, remember one of my senior lectures, they had a guy come in and he had this overlay, and he says, okay, and he took the Salt Lake Valley and he did an overlay. He says, okay, these are the places you don't want to live because you're close to the fault. Then he put it on, the old days when you had the overlay thing, and these are the parts you don't want to live because of a landslide. These are the parts that you don't want to live because of a faction. These are the parts you don't want to live in because of flooding hazards. And when you got done, there's just little pockets left where there wasn't any hazards. So we have to plan to live with them. Now, seismic upgrades. When we think about seismic upgrades, we think about them for these different reasons. We worry about life safety. We worry about financial loss, functional loss. If it is, in an emergency, his fire department to be able to get out the doors, and if the parapets fall off, he's got to clear out. Even if the building was to stand, he's got to clear the stuff out of the way and to be functional. And then, you have a community that you've got old buildings, and there are different emotions about old buildings, and so historic preservation is another reason for seismic upgrades. I throw this in here just for fun. This is the Code of Hammurabi, if you're familiar or heard of it before. It's from 2200 BC. This is the very first building code. You see here, if a builder built a house for someone and does not construct it properly, and the house which he built fall in and killed its owner, then the builder shall be put to death. So, and then here you have the owner's son's killed, then the builder has to have his son put to death. And unfortunately here on the slave, this has to replace the slave. So, but anyways, go ahead. These are local earthquakes, unreinforced buildings. All 4 of these buildings are unreinforced masonry. And this is just showing some of the typical damage that happens from unreinforced masonry. This was 1983. This one's 2 school children were killed on the way to school because the parapets fell off and killed a couple school children. Okay, this was in Cache Valley. There was a parapet up here that fell. And then next picture. And this it fell on the lower roof of the building below it.
Is the parapet essentially a wall?
Yeah, it's for example, on the only one that you have a parapet on is the older portion of the fire station.
Okay.
You do have a parapet on these, but they're so short for this portion that they're really not a problem. But those parapets are unreinforced, and they're very vulnerable in earthquake. You have a list of priorities when we look at them. And sometimes you're only interested in, because of limited budgets, you only want to hit the hot buttons. Bracing parapets is the hot.
And parapets are one of those things, they're what's classified as a non-structural component that needs to be braced. And if you go back through the records of earthquakes, deaths and injuries the vast majority of them are caused by things falling off of buildings and hitting people. Not because the building itself fell down and collapsed people, though that does happen, but pieces falling off of buildings outside or inside and striking people and either killing or injuring them. And so that's what Steve's getting at here, is we're talking about these pieces that, and identifying those dangers and mitigating them. That's one of the high.
Next one. This was a couple years ago. You might remember the Wells, Nevada earthquake. This is their main street before and after the earthquake. Again, it's just the front masonry walls. Buildings are standing, but you would not want to.
And these are all like 5.6 points.
These aren't big earthquakes. Okay, this was a couple earthquakes. One was in Washington, one was in California. These are schoolrooms. And you think about elementary school with those light fixtures falling. That's in a place like this, every one of these light fixtures, for example, there should be a lot of people don't think about this, but there should be an individual suspension at each one of the quarters. It shouldn't be just sitting on the ceiling grid, and lots of times that happens. Next one, these are ceilings we're talking about. This one was in a school auditorium. It's an old plaster ceiling. This is really relevant for your old rec center, because when you get up there and you look at that old ceiling's an old plaster ceiling. So even if the building were to survive the earthquake, the ceiling that you have in that would come down. And if there's people in there, that heavy ceiling can cause some major problems. Sometimes in an office space, I don't know if anyone got killed by that, but it's a mess. Now this is this is called a HAZUS run, and what they've done is they take off, based off the county property records and the ages of the buildings, they have a database and they estimate how much loss there would be in an earthquake from that. And so this is for a Provo earthquake. It'd be a 7.2, and every red dot represents a million. Want to hit that again? Okay. And so this is the estimated financial losses from a 7.2 earthquake. And you'll see for Utah County, structural damage is $1 billion. You'll see here, non-structural. Now, non-structural, we're talking about what Dave was talking about earlier: parapets, ceilings, chimneys, storage racks, that type of. You'll see that that's actually a bigger dollar number. And then if you look at the total loss in Utah County, they'd have that about $7.8 billion. And this number here also includes lost wages because businesses are not functioning. So anyway.
Why is the Utah County number bigger than the Salt Lake number?
This one is they've run this for every county. I happen to grab, because we're down here, I grabbed this one. This is one, and I could go on there, they give coordinates for it, but this is on earthquake that happened here. There's another one that for the Salt Lake fault, and then more damage is up there. So it's local to.
So if the epicenter was in
Yes.
Provo.
Yes,
Oh, I see.
exactly.
Provo segment of the fault.
Okay.
Yes. But the important thing is now, okay, that's flipped these numbers. That's assumed that the epicenter now is in Salt Lake. Earthquake's not as likely to happen, right? Well, let's say it's the Salt Lake one. Then all of a sudden these two numbers flip. Well, you're now stuck with that number. So
Still a big thing.
yes, it's still a big number.
And that's only
Yeah.
Has
And
there ever been a
7.2 is probably
7.2?
that's about as big as you probably can have.
In the history of Utah, has there ever been an earthquake like that?
Historically, that's based on trench data, because what they, it's just estimations. But what they do is they look at earthquakes that are currently, and then when they look at the trench data, they look at how far the ground moved in the trench data that the geologists have done, and based on the amount that it moved, that tells the energy of the nations. So that estimation is realistic based on the trenching data. Okay. All right, now, this is gonna be more relevant to, I'm just doing a little bit of seismic background, just because I'm a seismic guy. One of the things that we need to establish for each one of your buildings is a performance objective. How do you want the building to perform in an earthquake? We have a building target, we talk about the overall damage, we talk about the structural performance of the building and the non-structural, because those are both very important components. When I hit the, okay, the first one is what we call collapse prevention. That's the lowest level. And the goal in collapse prevention is get the people out alive. Okay, the building, you're holding the building together enough so that you minimize casualties. The building's going to be an economic loss when you're done. You're just going to bulldoze it. No saving the building, but you've protected lives. And so the next one, life safety. This is the standard that you build new buildings to. For residents, we typically meet the life safety provisions. And you have, there's actually some permanent drift. The building's allowed to flex some. You can see cracks in the building, but they'd be building cracks that would not lead to structural collapse. And most likely they're repairable. Okay, next. We have this category, which is called immediate occupancy. This means the structure is not damaged, it's safe. In fact, the fire department's probably aware, I don't know if you're aware in seismic, you come back after an earthquake and you red tag them or yellow tag them or green tag them. You can do that. And this would be a building, it'd be green tagged, it's safe to occupy. There's no drift, the structure retains its original strength, but the equipment's secure, but it may not operate because it's safe to occupy, but it's not usable. Your utilities aren't there. You don't have a backup generator. You don't have a secondary water supply. So it's not usable. And then you have the final category, which is called operational. And now the operational, structurally, these two buildings perform exactly the same. The difference is that this one has standby power. Do you have a generator for your fire department? So even after an earthquake, even if we made his building strong enough that he can get out and service public, his operational he's down because he doesn't have backup power utilities. And so for each one of these buildings, obviously, the fire department wants to be here at operational. Now the question would be for your other buildings, the rec center, the old seminary building, and the Beck home. If you chose to retrofit those, at what point would you do this? Now, sometimes for assembly use facilities, they'll pick something like this rather than that. You need to tell us maybe life safety is good enough, or maybe you're saying, hey, if we get people alive and the building's total structural loss, we're okay with that. And so that's where we need, for the purposes of this study, I like to talk about each building.
One of the things that comes into play here is, from a code standpoint, is change in use. If a change in use is considered, for example, the seminary building becoming offices, that's a change in use. And typically codes will say, when you change the use of a building, then you have to bring it up to current codes, depending upon the intensity of use. Always, if you go to a more intense use, you have to bring it up to current codes. So that's a trigger that comes into play as well.
Now, most likely going from a seminary building to the classroom to an office building, that's actually a downgrade in risk because if it's not being used, so that's actually helps you out. The rec center was always an assembly type use. The Beck home,
you go from residential to office. If you did that would be definitely a change in use.
This building was converted from a storage or from a wood shop to a fire department. That should have been a trigger that would have mandated that it be upgraded to current code standards. That's something that's loosely enforced, and so obviously it didn't happen. How long has the fire department been here?
Since 89, 90.
So, yeah. See, that's new enough where ideally, that would have triggered an automatic seismic upgrade for that building, move the fire department into an old wood shop, because that's going up in hazard. But that's history, so. won't worry
Well,
about that.
it's history, but we are an offshoot of your information that you get back, your report will influence us as to how we reutilize what we currently, differently than what they're used today.
Well, the fact is that your fire department wants to be here, and it's not right now. And so that's where we're at. And so, okay. Let's go ahead.
So, sorry, Stephen, on that last slide, if we want the fire department up to operational, and that's the direction we give, you'll be able to give us an estimated cost to get it to operational, right? That's,
Yes.
okay.
And there will be additional code issues besides just the structural
Right.
that will come into play for that.
You have some functional uses of the space, sleeping quarters, and some of those things that are, that be 100% code compliant, that we'll want to put some dollars at it. And so, we'll talk about.
Yeah, because part one for us is making that determination. Part two then is if we're going to get it to that safety code wise, then we look at the remodel of the building to meet the current needs.
Yes.
So you're going to get us up to the point where we can look at that and say, it's just going to cost us X amount of dollars just to get us to code, not even touching anything else inside.
Well, when you talk about code, there's structural code, but there's also other code issues that are that have to do with life safety and just building code requirements. And that's why I'm here, is because I bring that up a piece of compliance.
So is it too much to ask? This is kind of a theoretical question, but is it too much to ask to have kind of a menu and say, this is the estimation of what it would cost to collapse prevention level, and this is what it would cost to get to life safety, rather than have each of these four, we want each of these four buildings to say, this is the ballpark, kind of give us a matrix of options. Is that within the
I
realm
can
of
kind of do
possibility?
that for you. I'll explain to you how, okay?
Okay.
And it's actually the methodology that we've chosen to use for these facilities that's actually the click of the mouse to tell the difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
So literally, so we can easily do that for the seismic part. I don't know about the other code issues involved, but for the seismic portion, it's steady. So, okay, so in reading the RFP